Hello students, today we are going to understand a very important concept, that is our changing earth. So what do you understand by that our changing earth? Or you might often seen that the whole planet earth is basically composed of different materials. First of all, we will talk about the landmass which is distributed throughout the earth, which we are known as basically continents. And similarly, when we talk about the ocean, which is also spread throughout the planet. But let's understand that what are these formations, which basically right now we are seeing that there are different continents over the planet earth. Like we can say there is North America, South America, Asia, then we can say that Australia. All this landmass basically which is spread throughout as a different continents, and the ocean which is also settled on some type of base, right? So basically in our changing earth, we are going to understand about the concept that all the landmass over the earth and all the important forces which apply over the earth and interior from the earth was basically started with which process, right? So when we talk about process, so there are two different types of process basically applied throughout the planet, basically over the planet and below the interior of this planet, right? When we talk about this diagram, as you can see this image, you are saying that there are different types of continents, right? But what is the process that these continents which are basically present into their current position, are they available from very old time on their existing places, or they basically fragmented with different forces, right? Just take an example. If Earth, we all know that Earth is a very solid planet, and when we talk about the solid planet, that means the Earth is composed with the rocks, and molten form of rocks are available inside the Earth. Right now you are seeing that African plate, Indian plate, Australian plate and Eurasian plate. What does this plate word means, right? So when we talk about these plates, that means these bases of continent, that means just take an example. If I have a slice of a bread, that slice of a bread has a thickness, right? When that slice of a bread basically float over a water, you can say that that water basically also settle on a base, right? That means all the oceans which are available through the planet, that means these oceans also have a floor which is known as oceanic floor. Similarly, all the continents, they also having some floor which is known as continent or lithospheric floor, or we can say continental crust, right? As in your smaller classes, you have seen that crust means the part of lithosphere, that means from the above of the earth, we can go inside the deep of the earth, right? So these lithospheric plate broken into a number of plate known as lithospheric plates. That means we can say that whole African continent, we can say, is basically situated on a margin of the plate that you can see. These are the margin of these plates. As you can see, this whole Africa is settled on a plate that is known as African plate. It is not necessary that complete continent basically settled over a plate. It might possible that like Indian plate is adjoining the Australian plate. And you can see that whole India, or we can say till the portion of northern Himalayas, is basically settled over the Indian plate. But which forces are applicable throughout these plates, which basically leads to development of these continents, right? That means these plates are connected with each other, right? As you can see, these plates are connected as a plate boundary margins, but these plates are connected with each other, but the continental portions over these plates are apart from each other. It might be filled with water also, right? So in a very old time, if we take a more deep interest into this theory, that once the combined landmass over the earth was known as Pangea. Now this Pangea was bisected into two different portions. First is Angara land, which drifted toward northern side. As you can see, Asia was part of that Angara land. And second is the Gondwana land. So Australia, North, we can say South America, we can say India, Africa was part of that Gondwana land. So which are these forces which is responsible of creating any physical property, any continent, oceanic floor over the earth? Let's understand, right? So they move around very slowly. All these plate boundaries, all these plate, we can say the lithospheric plate, basically there is a interior force beneath these plate which is known as endogenic forces, right? So these forces basically generate with the molten magma in terms of rocks which is available deep inside the earth. The energy released from the deep inside the earth towards the upper portion of earth, and due to these energy, you might have seen the sudden earthquakes, the eruption of the volcanoes, right? So these are some important features. One can see that the development of earth has been started with these type of processes, right? So molten magma inside the earth, which is responsible of these high energetic vibrations, pressures over the earth, right? The movement of these plates cause changes on the surface of the earth, right? So let's understand what type of forces one can see over the earth and beneath inside the earth. So there are two categories one can say. First is endogenic forces. Endo means interior. When we basically explain endo means interior portion of the earth. And exogenic forces. When we say exogenic forces, exo means that means which apply over the earth. You might have seen, one can say that when the running water over the surface of the earth through the Himalayas or deep valleys, they cut their side portions, right? That is the pressure exerted by the flowing water over the, we can say, over the sides of that valley, right? Similarly, you can say the glaciers, the ice, which is again work as an agent of erosion. When this ice, these glaciers basically bisected from each other, they drift towards another portion. That is the force they apply over the earth, right? So let's understand sudden forces which basically release from interior of the earth, that is earthquake. As an impact of that sudden force, you can see the earthquake, right? Shaking of the, we can say, land. Then volcanoes. All over the globe, you can see there are different volcanic eruptions one can see. Recently, the volcanoes erupted in Hawaii region, and landslides, which is again the interior pressure of force of the earth. When we talk about diastrophic forces, that sudden forces we can say develop slowly and very steadily, very long period of time over the earth, which we can say the building process of mountains like Aravalis, like Andes, like Urals, the Himalayas. So similarly, these are the folding and faulting process. Then the exogenic forces which apply over the earth, they have different erosion and agent of that forces like river, wind, sea waves and glaciers. So these work throughout the surface of the earth and they basically change the topography, mold the topography or develop new type of topography, right? So let's understand plate movements. What are the development of these continental crust or lithospheric crust? So there are three major types of forces applied over the continental crust, or we can say one can see that right now what is Africa and India. India was connected to the Africa very old time, almost 50 lakh years ago, when India was bisected from Africa due to these forces and drifted towards northern side. So divergent movement, one can say divergent means, that means the movement apart from each other. That means any plate, we can say when these plates move towards apart from each other, that is the divergent movement, right? So you can say that North America and South America diverged and they basically float apart from each other. That is the divergent movement, right? Similarly, convergent movement, when two plates, we can say, come close to each other and they collide, or we can say they basically submerge over each other, that is, we can say, convergent movement. Again, this is a horizontal movement. Divergent and convergent, both basically example of straight, we can say, the horizontal movement, right? And then transform movement. Transform movement was basically example of faults. That means when faults are created, deep valleys, deep gorges were created. Sometime transform movement was seen vertical, that means completely submerge of one plate over another, as you can see the Nazca plate and you can say the Eurasian plate, example of these type of transform movement. Now, so as again, when we talk about the endogenic forces, you can see the example of volcano. The volcano, as you can see the crater, the mouth of the volcano is connected with the magma chamber, which is beneath inside the earth. So when we say that this volcano erupted with the vent, with the crater, with the mouth, when it is erupted, you can see the continuation erosion of the lava, as we can say, when magma was inside and it comes out, it is known as lava. When lava completely gives height to this volcano over a long period of time. So there is a development of physical feature outside also, and there is a development of molten magma inside that volcano also, right? So this eruption, which might happen from the crater or the mouth of volcano, or might happen with the vents and independent vents also from the surface of volcano. So such volcanic eruption is example of the pressure which is released from inside the earth, right? Which is example of endogenic force. Now, a volcano is a vent opening in the earth's crust through which molten material erupts suddenly, right? You can say that any volcano over the earth, like the barren volcano in India is the only volcano of India, and it is active volcano that may basically erupt in future also, right? The magma that reaches the earth's surface is called lava. Now, as we can say, the passage through which magma travels is called a vent, which is connected through the magma chamber beneath the earth. Throughout the globe, if we can take an example, the Pacific Ring of Fire is one such belt which is situated into the Northern America and Europe and South America. Between these Ring of Fire is the Pacific Ocean. This Ring of Fire is the largest change of active volcanoes in the world, right? Now, so there are different types of volcanoes. One can see active volcano, dormant volcano and extinct volcano. Active volcano means any volcano which can be erupt any time, tomorrow we can say, or any upcoming days or months or weeks, right? Then we can say the dormant volcano which erupted for a long time, but it might possible it will erupt in near future too, right? That means the capacity of magma was little bit slower than active. and an extinct volcano that may not erupt any time in future, because this volcano has completely we can say vacant and now completely wiped out from its magma chamber. So some of example are Mount Etna in Italy, Mount Stromboli, Mount Fujiyama in Japan, and Mount Kenya and Aconcagua in Africa. So these are some example of volcanoes, and volcanoes are example of endogenic forces, the physical topography which one can see the example of endogenic forces. So in this section we have seen the example of our changing earth and the endogenic forces. Thank you.